Clap, 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 everybody! Come on! It's me! I'm not doing this for my health, you know.
You couldn't hear anything, Chidge.
I know, it's my fault. I forgot to cue you all in, but there you go. Now, this is our lovely and beautifully formed part 4. I am Stanford Chidge, and this, of course, is the Chelsea Football Fancast. Now, before the break, you will remember me saying that we've got my dear old friend Rob Shepherd on the telephone, the old dog and bone, as he might say. Now, those of you who were watching last year might recall that we had Rob actually physically with us on the show, and he was talking about Juan Mata going to Man United, and we were laughing in his face, like the fool that we presumed him to be.
I guffawed.
Like a fraud. But, of course, what happened was Juan Mata duly went off to Man United, thus proving that Rob Shepherd actually does know what he's talking about. And annoyingly, I bet him that if Juan Mata went to Man United, I would buy him lunch in a very expensive but very nice Italian restaurant called La Famiglia. Now, people out there in TV land will be delighted to know I have not actually done this yet. I have not taken him out to lunch. But Rob, I promise that I will. Now, do we have young Robert on the phone? No, not yet. Okay, well, we'll just talk amongst ourselves for a bit.
That was the first televised podcast.
It was the first televised.
I phoned in from Tel Aviv.
It was the first televised podcast. It was. We really do need to get Rob on the phone because this is going to be a very dull part of me talking. I mean, one of you could pretend to be Rob, and I could ask you the questions.
No, you pretend to be Rob. We'll
ask you the questions. I don't know if I can.
I'm asking the question.
I'm asking the question.
Is it Rob? Is Rob very like that? Is he a bit like that, Rob?
No, you know Rob. You've met Rob.
I can't remember. Have I met Rob? He's a bit like that, isn't he?
You've met Rob.
He's a bit like. What was the one we had on who was like that?
What I will tell you, though, I mean, in all seriousness, because we do have an audience here, amazingly. Well, we did until about a minute ago, I expect. But anyway, presuming that we still have an audience, you know, what I wanted to talk to Rob about particularly is the fact that in his article in the Mail Online, he wrote this fantastic thing called the Football Grapevine, which is on Mail on Sunday. And Rob believes that... Oh, hang on. Remarkable. 1-0. Do we have Rob on the phone?
We do indeed.
Robster.
He's like that. He's like that.
Hey, we're loving it.
He's like that. That's the way he speaks. We do indeed.
Brilliant. Enough, you lot. Rob, it's great to have you on the dog and bone. Sorry it took a while to sort it out. How are you, my friend?
I'm okay. It seems like you've got Fernando Torres on the switchboard there.
If only he was paid as much as Fernando Torres is paid, Rob.
Indeed.
All right, man.
Now, maybe that's what we might talk about. But can I just remind you that I think it was this time last year when I was on your wonderful show, and I did tell people that Juan Mata would not fit in to Marino's game plan. I was absolutely berated, coated, and any other word you'd like to use. And it wasn't a question about his ability, but Marino not wanting him in the team. And, of course, you might remember that he was sold to Manchester United in January. Anyway, let's move on. Throw them at me. And
I'm amazed, Rob, that you kind of missed one very, very important bit, which is that I also bet you that if that happened, I would buy you lunch in La Famiglia.
Which I'm still looking forward to, kids.
Yeah, indeed.
One of my favourite restaurants that I have to tell people, I have been to a few years ago with Ken Bates, your former chairman, on several occasions.
Did he pay?
No.
The press always pay. So there we go. I promise I will honour that debt, Rob. I promise you faithfully.
I look forward to it. So I'll keep the Chianti consumption to a minimum.
I like a bit of Chianti. Anyway, especially with a good friend. Anyway, right. I want to talk to you, first of all, about what you think of Chelsea's start to the season so far.
Brilliant. I mean, Chelsea, believe it or not, I believe they'll win the league this season. Nothing that's happened since the first two games dissuade me. I think the potential player of the year is Cech Fabregas. I do think Manchester City is strong. I think it's going to be eventually a two-way battle between Chelsea and Manchester City. I think Arsenal will be third, and it will be a shootout between Manchester United and Liverpool for fourth. But Chelsea looks strong. My only concern for Chelsea, it's hardly a concern, is it? But do they have the extra striker if the Costa gets in? I mean, he's a great buy, but do they have the extra guy on the bench to come off particularly if he's injured. I mean, obviously Drogba came on, but I don't know who you... If Torres stays, then I think you've got enough on the bench. But if he goes, I'm just not sure you have. That's my only concern. And you must remember, you had 10 years of Frank Lampard scoring goals to alleviate, the pressure on the sort of striker. You haven't got that. That's gone now. And I don't think anybody will ever replicate what Frank did.
It's really interesting. I mean, you bring up Torres there, and that's a very good point. I mean, it's interesting what you say, though. You think that we'll be okay if Torres stays. I know many Chelsea supporters who would disagree with you, and I think his he's been conspicuous by his absence so far, Rob.
Yeah, but I mean listen, he's a top-notch player to have on a subs bench, isn't he? I mean, I'm not saying he's the Torres of the days of Liverpool, and there's an interesting debate for another day why that is, but you haven't got a young striker coming through. If you got rid of Torres, you have to buy another striker. You have to have another striker as an option, because if Costa got injured or suspended or whatever, you're just short. Other than that, the team looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, the goalkeeper, as I wrote in my Mail Online football column and also on Bobby FC, that was always going to happen. Courtois coming back, I think Cech will go. But there was a defining moment, I think, in the game against Leicester on Saturday, wasn't it? And tough game. They really played, I thought, well. Leicester, that was, and had a breakaway, 0-0. I think it was Nugent goes through 1-on-1, and Courtois makes that sort of, gunslinger save, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Brilliant save, and that. If there was any doubt in Chelsea fans' minds that Mourinho's made the right decision, that was it. That was a defining moment.
Yeah.
And then he comes out and he commands the box. And I think Cech had just lost that ability to command the box as much as it. I mean, he's 22. I mean, he's probably one. He could be one of the best goalkeepers ever.
Yeah, and I think that we're all reluctantly beginning to accept that decision now. I mean, I was reading the grapevine yesterday, and I had a word with you the other week, and I mean, you've got quite interesting insight on how Cech feels. I mean, I think Mourinho would like him to stay if possible. I think a lot of us would like him to stay if possible, but I think we all accept that he's more than earned the right to have a move away if he needs to. But you've got some juice on that, yeah?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I think he's particularly annoyed that Mourinho hasn't even sort of gone and sat down with him and said, look, this is what it is. And this is what I'm doing. He feels peeved, if that's the polite expression of saying it. He's not. I mean, in goalkeeping currency, he's actually not an old man, is he?
He's prime.
No, he's what, 32, 33?
He's prime.
I mean, so he. But look, I know the decision was made. What do we do? We can't. Courtois said, I want the extra money, and this is a fundamental thing, and I want to be number one. Otherwise, sell me or I'm not coming back, And what do? You don't. I think one of Mourinho's strengths is he makes a strong decision about a big issue and moves on. A lot of managers make these bad decisions, particularly about goalkeepers. And I'll give you two examples, and they're both international examples with England. In 1990, Peter Shilton was just a year too far, right? And it cost England in the game in the semi-final against West Germany. And in 2002, David Seaman was a year too far. And, when you're at this highest level, it's those percentages that change it. So going back to that save against Nugent, I'm not sure Cech would have saved that anymore. And so that's the difference. And Brian Clough, who I think, I've always called Mourinho the Continental Clough. He bought Peter Shilton, and he said he will make us 18 points a season, and that was in the days of 2 points for a win. And I think the difference. I think there were certain games last year. If you look back, sorry about that. That's my cab just coming from.
Put your head down, Rob.
Yeah, get scream as well. You've got. No, sorry. Oh, sorry, officer. Sorry, officer. No, it's not true. Yeah, it's a very, very, very big call. The goalkeeper is fundamental. So a couple of games last season, I saw there was indecision in the back four because he didn't come for a couple of crosses and goals were conceded. I think there was a game. There's a couple of goals. I can't actually cite them absolutely, but you experts there of Chelsea's season will remember a couple of goals that were conceded.
Yeah.
And it was down to indecision because he wasn't coming off the line.
I think that's a fair point, Rob. I mean, where do you think? I mean, it sounds like he's going to go. I mean, is he going to go before the end of this window, or will it be in January? And if so, who to?
Well, I think it will be in this window because he's not going to want to sit around. He's going to want to play. And who to? PSG have been mentioned. Well, in fact, I've mentioned them. They want a goalkeeper, so they were after Torres from Tottenham. He used them to get a new deal. There's a couple of clubs in Spain. In the whole sort of roller coaster of it. I don't know. I mean, this will not happen, right? But I was talking to someone the other day, and someone said to me, Manchester United might sell De Gea. And I said, no, I don't believe that. But, never disbelieve anything in football when it comes to signings and stuff. But, if that happened, then Peter Cech to Manchester United, well, Chelsea wouldn't allow it.
No, I don't see that happening. I mean, I think the PSG thing might have legs, mate. Listen, the other talk at the moment, Rob, is about Torres possibly going to AC Milan. And Roma have also been talked about. And, I can't see Torres going without us bringing in a replacement. And this guy, Jimmy Destri, or is it Matti Destro? I forget. From Roma.
Yeah, I mean, this is going back to what I raised, really, to be honest with you, is that and you know where I stand on this, Chids. I just don't understand why Chelsea think Lukaku was surplus to requirements.
Attitude, mate. Attitude.
Well, right, okay. Attitude to whom?
Well, I just don't think that Mourinho felt he had the right attitude to succeed at Chelsea.
No,
I think he really wound him up last summer with the great, the big I am kind of stuff. And then he played. Do you know? I tell you what, Rob, and I'm sure the boys would agree with me on this actually. But I think the nail in Lukaku's coffin was that awful penalty miss in the Super Cup, and also in that same match when Mourinho brought him on, he patently ignored all of Jose's instructions and played like a fish out of water, basically.
Like a child.
Like a child, yeah.
No. I mean, listen. You've made it. You're right, probably. Okay.
What do you mean, probably?
Well, no, you are right.
Possibly.
All I'm saying is, he's younger. He's a guy that you can contain within the squad and bring on. It's a really hard juggling act. I mean, I'll go back to the great days of West Ham before we had, 22-man squads, and we had Frank McAvenny and Tony Cottee, right?
Yeah.
And then they flourished because Paul Goddard had been injured, right?
Yeah.
And when Paul Goddard returned to fitness, right, they couldn't at the time in those days cope with having three strikers, right? So Goddard went. And then, of course, eventually McAvenny went, and then Cottee went, and, well, West Ham ended up with bloody Ian Dowie or something.
Yeah.
So, but I'll bring up the West Ham thing, which I always will, obviously. Sorry. Is that there is a striker available, and a bid has been put in to West Ham from Bournemouth.
Andy Carroll?
No, Cole, also known, if you're good at crosswords, Cole can't control.
Well, we used to call him Bruno. I mean, well, I get the point you're making. I get the point you're making here, Rob, because Carlton Cole was a youngster at Chelsea who actually probably pound for pound made more of an impact than Romelu Lukaku when he was there. I remember seeing a couple of good goals he scored for us when he was very young, and then he fell by the wayside. And And whilst I put up a pretty vigorous defence of why I think Mourinho got rid of Lukaku, I have to say I think like most Chelsea supporters, you know, I'm very sorry to see him go because it's kind of, well, what was the point? You know, we bought him when he was 18, and then he's gone. You know,
doubled our money and he moved down.
Yeah, but double your money. What's the money? I mean, the money for who?
Well, for the club. I mean, for me, ultimately.
When you say for the club, I mean, well, for who?
Well, how do you mean?
Well, I mean, I think one thing I think you could say about the money side, Rob, is that, you know, when we're doing the kind of business that we've done this summer, a lot of it's done, you know, with a very big thinking towards the FFP and everything that's going on there. Yeah. You know, Chelsea are becoming very, very business-like and very mindful of FFP. It being that FFP was probably brought in to sort Chelsea out, and
well, which is why Fabregas is one of the most, in my view, the best signing in the summer. And I said earlier on, I think could be player of the season because he's actually an English, inverted commas, English player on those complex. All I'm saying is this: let me to do a crass sort of politician thing. Let me be clear here, all right? Let me be clear. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I'm hanging on your every word, Rob. You know me.
No, for Chelsea to win, I mentioned for Chelsea to win the title this season, which I believe they will. I know, but they need another striker. I just think they're just short of strikers. That's and just one. That's a really difficult one because it's a big, huge club, right? Yeah. You bring a big, huge striker in. It's difficult with the system that Chelsea are playing because he's probably not going to play all the time, right? Yeah. So what you want is a younger, burgeoning one, or you want a veteran. So they brought in Drogba as a veteran, and he got, you know, ridiculous welcome. But Drogba is not going to be Drogba of 10 years ago, as much as we all love him. He's one of my favourite players, by the way. You know, I think he's a tremendous player and a tremendous character and everything. So then, can you tell me, chaps, there, enlighten me too, apart from Torres, is who else is at the club that can play up front at the moment? Sure, I'm not sure he can. See, I think last season, if you'd have had Lukaku on the bench, I think you'd have won the title. Because I think that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Etu scored no goals away from home last season.
No, well, none of the strikers did after December or something, wasn't it? Ridiculous
and
stat.
I have to add in that, you know, the not Frank Lampard factor.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, to be honest, Rob, I completely agree with you. It really worries. I mean, you look at Man City and how many quality strikers they've got, and then you look at us, and that is the difference between us and them, really. And, you know, it's a worrying thing.
People laugh at cliches, and I've got a strong opinion about this, kids, as you know. The reason for cliches is because they actually are, you know, often quite, you know, pertinent. Goals win games.
Yeah.
Goals change games.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds a little bit plankton to talk about it, but it's absolutely a fact. You know, and that's why, you know, I think Chelsea got everything apart from one extra striker. I think they win most of their games at home this season. I just wonder whether away from home, in a big, big situation, they will have someone that can steal a goal like in the past they have. And that's my only concern, and I think they should go and buy a striker. That's what I think. I share that, and I hope that something happens this week. Well, one thing very quickly before we have to go, Rob, in about 10-15 seconds. Obviously, Dickie Attenborough passed away this weekend. You got any thoughts on that, very briefly? A wonderful man. Never met him. Tremendous man. Tremendous supporter of Chelsea Football Club. A real, Chelsea fan. Not like one of these Johnny come lately celeb fans. He was a proper Chelsea fan.
Yeah, he was.
He was an actor, and he supported the club all the way through from the 50s and the 60s through, to the present day. And a sad loss to all of us. Yeah, indeed. Thanks for that, Rob. I appreciate that. We've got to go to a break, unfortunately. But Rob, thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully I'll see you soon. See you soon. Cheers.